I thought I'd finally done it. I sold everything back home, my car, my condo, even my wife's old piano. I told myself I was buying peace, sunshine, and maybe someone who'd care if I didn't wake up one morning. Bangkok was supposed to be that fresh start. And when I met her, this smart, elegant property agent, I believed it was fate. But I learned something they don't put in retirement guides. Peace can cost more than chaos. And the price of love in Bangkok? It's the most expensive lesson of my life. Just a few nights ago, I got an email from someone who's been following this channel for a few months now. He said he stumbled across it while researching retirement visas and ended up staying for the stories. He told me my words reminded him of his own fresh start, same hopes, same dream of building something real in Thailand. But instead of finding peace, he found himself signing over property to a woman who disappeared before the paint on the walls had even dried. Reading that message hit me like a quiet punch to the gut. Not because it shocked me, but because it reminded me how easy it is to confuse comfort with connection. We don't come here looking for fantasy. We come here looking for a place to belong. But sometimes, the people who promise us belonging are the first to walk away when the money runs out. That's why I keep sharing these stories. Because they're not just about heartbreak, they're about truth. About men who gave everything. Not out of foolishness, but out of faith that love could heal what life broke. Before we start tonight's story, I just want to say thank you truly to everyone watching, commenting, and reaching out from around the world. Whether you've been here since the beginning or just found this channel, you're the reason these stories matter. Tell me where you're watching from. I read every message. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. The airplane wheels. Touched down at Suvarnabhumi Airport just after midnight. I remember gripping the armrest harder than I needed to, feeling the humid Bangkok air rush through the cabin doors the moment they opened. 67 years old, and I was starting over. Most men my age were settling into recliners, watching grandkids grow up through video calls. Not me. I'd cashed out everything, liquidated a life that stopped making sense somewhere around my 58th birthday, and bought a one-way ticket to a country I'd only seen in travel documentaries. The immigration officer stamped my passport without looking up. I wanted to tell him this wasn't just a vacation, that I was here to find something I'd lost decades ago, but he'd already moved on to the next person in line. Outside, taxi drivers shouted prices at me in broken English. I picked the one who smiled, because that's what you do when you're starting fresh. You choose the smile. He drove me through streets that never seemed to sleep, past temples lit up like golden dreams, and food stalls, sending smoke signals into the tropical night. I'd rented a serviced apartment near Asok, one of those places that caters to expats who haven't figured out if they're staying or leaving. The unit was small but clean, with a view of the BTS tracks and the endless stream of humanity flowing beneath them. I unpacked my 2 suitcases and sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly aware of how quiet it was. Not peaceful quiet. Lonely quiet. The kind that makes you question every decision that brought you to a studio apartment 9,000 miles from everyone you've ever known. The first week blurred into a routine I built from scratch. Morning coffee at a street cart where the old woman selling it never charged me the right amount, but I never corrected her. Long walks through Lumpini Park watching Tai Chi practitioners move like water. Afternoons in air-conditioned malls because the heat was something I hadn't prepared for. Not really. The guidebooks called it tropical warmth. They should have called it relentless. I started eating alone at the same restaurant near my apartment, a place with plastic stools and a menu I couldn't read. The owner's daughter spoke enough English to guide me through orders. Pad Krapow became my default. She'd giggle every time I tried to say it properly. "You sound like my grandfather," she told me once. I asked if that was good or bad. "Good," she said. "He's my favorite person." It was the kindest thing anyone had said to me in months. But kindness wasn't why I came. I came because Portland had become a city of ghosts. My ex-wife's voice in every grocery store aisle. My daughter's absence in every holiday that passed without a phone call. I'd worked 39 years as an accountant, shuffling numbers for people who never learned my name, and retired with enough savings to disappear. So I did. Bangkok felt like the right kind of wrong, foreign enough to distract me from myself. I wasn't looking for romance. Let me be clear about that. When people hear these stories, they assume lonely old man plus young country equals predictable disaster. But that wasn't it. I just wanted to feel like I existed again, like my presence in a room changed something. Anything. I'd started looking at condos, thinking maybe I'd stay longer than 6 months. The serviced apartment was fine, but it felt temporary, like I was living in a hotel built for people passing through. I wanted walls that were mine, even if the deed said otherwise. That's when I met her, Nathida, the real estate agent who'd respond to my inquiry email within 30 minutes, asking when I'd like to view properties. Professional, courteous, none of the aggressive salesmanship I'd expected. We met at a coffee shop in Thong Lo, one of those trendy places where everything costs 3 times what it should. She arrived exactly on time, carrying a leather portfolio and wearing a smile that seemed genuine. Not the performative kind you see in service jobs. Genuine. "Mr. Hayes," she said, extending her hand. "Thank you for choosing my agency. I promise to find you exactly what you need." Her English was flawless, accent soft but clear. She couldn't have been older than 30, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd figured life out early. We spent that afternoon looking at 3 condos, each one bigger and more expensive than the last. She didn't push. Every time I hesitated, she'd nod and say, "We can keep looking." No pressure. At the 3rd property, a 2-bedroom unit with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Benjikiti Park, I made the mistake of saying out loud what I was thinking. "It's beautiful, but it feels too big for just me." She smiled, not in a pitying way, just understanding. "Space isn't about size, Mr. Hayes. It's about possibility. You fill it with what makes you happy." I signed the lease that evening, not because of the condo, though it was perfect, because of the way she made me feel like this decision mattered, like I wasn't just another foreigner throwing money at a fantasy. When we finished the paperwork, she handed me the keys and said something I still remember word for word. "You don't need to rush. Thailand will wait for you." I drove back to my serviced apartment that night feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Calm. Not happiness exactly, but the absence of heaviness. It's not the same thing, but when you've carried weight for as long as I had, lightness feels like a miracle. The condo became home faster than I expected. I bought furniture from a warehouse in Sukhumvit, arranged it all wrong the first time, then rearranged it until it felt right. Nathida checked in a few days later. A courtesy call, she said, making sure everything was working. "How's the water pressure?" she asked. I laughed. "Perfect. How did you know that's what I'd care about?" "Foreigners always care about water pressure," she said, "and air conditioning, and reliable internet. I've learned what matters." We talked for 20 minutes about nothing important. She told me about her morning commute, the way Bangkok traffic made her meditative instead of angry. I told her about the street food vendor downstairs who gave me extra chili even though I'd asked for less. "She likes you," Nathida said. "That's how Thai people show affection. We feed you until you explode." When we hung up, I realized I was smiling, not because of what she said, but because someone had called just to see if I was okay. It had been a long time since anyone checked. A few weeks later, I invited her to dinner. Just as thanks, I told myself. She'd gone above and beyond, handled my clumsy questions about leases and contracts, even helped me set up a Thai bank account when my American card kept getting declined. It was the least I could do. She hesitated when I asked, and I immediately regretted it. "I'm sorry," I said quickly. "I didn't mean to overstep." "I know. You're busy." She shook her head. No, it's not that. I just want to make sure you don't feel obligated. This is my job, Mr. Hayes. I help clients." "Call me Clifford," I said. "And I don't feel obligated. I feel grateful." She accepted. We met at a restaurant near the river, one of those places with wooden tables and string lights that made everything feel softer than it was. She wore a simple dress, nothing fancy, and apologized for being 10 minutes late. Traffic. Always traffic. I ordered you water, I said, gesturing to the glass in front of her seat. She smiled. You didn't need to do that. I know, I said, but I did anyway. Dinner started professionally. She asked about my adjustment to Bangkok, if I'd had any trouble with the language barrier, if I'd visited the Grand Palace yet. I told her I'd been putting it off, that tourist attractions felt strange when you weren't technically a tourist anymore. You're not a tourist, she agreed. You're a resident now. That's different. Tourists take pictures. Residents take their time. The conversation shifted when she asked about my family. I'd been dodging that question since I arrived, deflecting with jokes about being a boring retired accountant. But something about the way she asked, no judgment in her voice, just curiosity, made me answer honestly. I have a daughter, I said. Sarah. She's 34, lives in Seattle. We don't talk much. My fault mostly. I worked too much when she was growing up, missed too many recitals and soccer games. Then her mother and I divorced, and whatever relationship we had left just kind of dissolved. Nathita listened without interrupting. And now? She asked gently. Now she has her own life, I said. Husband, career, probably kids soon. I'm happy for her, but I'm not part of it. I sent her an email when I moved here. She replied with 2 sentences. Good for you, Dad. Be safe. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. Nathita reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. Just for a moment. You deserve happiness too, Mr. Clifford. It was the first time anyone had said that to me in years. Not you'll be fine. Not time heals. Just a simple statement that I deserved something good. I felt my throat tighten and looked away, embarrassed by the sudden emotion. Sorry, I said. It's been a long day. She didn't pull her hand back right away. Don't apologize for feeling things. That's what makes us human. We finished dinner talking about lighter topics. She told me about growing up in Khon Kaen, a city I'd never heard of in the northeast region. Her mother still lived there, sold som tam at the local market, saved every baht she made. Nathita sent money home every month, a responsibility she carried without resentment. I'm the oldest, she explained. It's expected, but I don't mind. My mother sacrificed everything so I could go to university. This is how I thank her. I told her about Portland, the rain that never seemed to stop, the coffee shops on every corner, the way Powell's bookstore smelled like possibility. She listened like my stories mattered, like she wasn't just being polite. When the check came, I grabbed it before she could protest. This is my thank you, I said. Let me have this. She smiled. Okay, but next time I pay. Next time. The words hung in the air between us like a promise neither of us had meant to make. That next time came sooner than I expected. She called me 2 days later, asking if I wanted to visit a weekend market in Chatuchak. It's overwhelming, she warned. But you can find anything there. Furniture, art, plants, antiques. I thought maybe you'd want to add something personal to your condo. I met her at the BTS station. She was wearing jeans and a loose blouse, sunglasses perched on her head, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen her. We spent 4 hours wandering through endless stalls, haggling over prices I couldn't calculate fast enough. She negotiated for me, getting a wooden Buddha statue for half the asking price, laughing when the vendor pretended to be offended. You're too good at this, I said. She grinned. It's a skill. My mother taught me. Never accept the first price. Never walk away angry. Always leave room for everyone to save face. We stopped for coconut ice cream, sitting on a bench under a tree while the crowd flowed around us. Can I ask you something? I said. She nodded. Why are you being so kind to me? I'm just another client. She looked at me for a long moment before answering. You're not just another client, Clifford. Most foreigners I work with, they treat me like I'm part of the furniture, polite but distant. You see me, that's rare. I didn't know what to say to that. We finished our ice cream in comfortable silence. On the train ride back, she fell asleep against the window, her head tilted at an angle that looked uncomfortable. I didn't wake her, just watched the city blur past and wondered when exactly I'd started caring about this woman I barely knew. When we reached her stop, she jerked awake, embarrassed. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I didn't sleep well last night." "Long day?" I asked. She nodded. "Long week. But today was nice. Thank you for letting me show you my city." She stepped off the train and waved as the doors closed. I waved back, feeling something shift inside me. Something I knew I should have been careful about but wasn't. The weeks turned into months, and Nathita became part of my daily life in a way I hadn't planned. She'd text me in the mornings asking if I'd eaten breakfast. She'd send me articles about expat life in Thailand, tips on avoiding scams, reminders about visa renewals. When my air conditioner broke, she called the building manager and argued with him in rapid Thai until he agreed to fix it the same day. "You can't let them push you around," she said. "They see foreigner and think they can delay everything." I took her to dinner again. And again. It stopped being about gratitude and started being about wanting to see her. We fell into a rhythm, meeting twice a week, sometimes more. She introduced me to restaurants I never would have found on my own. Tiny places and alleys where the food tasted like someone's grandmother had cooked it with love. I started calling her my angel, half joking at first, then not joking at all. One night, after too much wine, I told her she was the best thing that had happened to me in Bangkok. She smiled, but there was something in her eyes I couldn't read. "Every foreigner needs a Thai guide," she said lightly. "No," I said. "I just need you." She looked away, and for a moment I thought I'd said too much, crossed some line we'd been dancing around for weeks. But then she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm glad you're here, Clifford. I really am." We started traveling together, short trips at first. A weekend in Hua Hin, where we walked the beach at sunrise and ate seafood at a restaurant, built on stilts over the water. Another trip to Pattaya, which she insisted wasn't as trashy as its reputation if you knew where to go. She was right. We found quiet corners, temples on hillsides, viewpoints where the city looked almost beautiful. At the hotels, she introduced me as her partner, not client, not friend, partner. The word made my chest tighten every time. I'd stopped thinking of her as my real estate agent. She was more than that now. Companion, confidante. The person I wanted to tell when something funny happened, or when the loneliness crept back in during the late hours. One evening, as we sat on my balcony watching Bangkok's skyline light up like a circuit board, she asked me something I wasn't ready for. "Have you ever thought about investing here? Really investing, I mean. Property, business, something permanent." I sipped my beer, considering. "I've thought about it." "Why?" She turned to face me, her expression serious. "Because I have an opportunity. A second condo, new development near Rama 9. The developer is offering pre-construction prices, 40% below market. It's an investment that'll double in value within 3 years." "That sounds too good to be true," I said carefully. She nodded. "I know how it sounds. But I've worked with this developer before. They're legitimate. The problem is, as a foreigner, you can't own it outright. It would need to be under a Thai name." My stomach tightened. "Your name?" She looked away, and I could see her choosing her words carefully. "It's just paperwork, Clifford. We'd have a contract. Everything legal. I'm not asking you to trust blindly. I'm asking you to trust me." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But something in my gut, some survival instinct, honed over 67 years of life, was screaming caution. "Can I think about it?" I asked. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Of course. Take all the time you need." I didn't take much time. 2 weeks later, I'd convinced myself it made sense. Nathita had been nothing but honest with me. She'd helped me navigate a foreign country, introduced me to her world, made me feel less alone than I'd felt in a decade. This was an opportunity, a real one. And more than that, it was a gesture of trust, A way of saying, I believed in us, whatever us meant. The down payment was $80,000, nearly half my liquid savings. I wired the money through my Thai bank, hands shaking as I confirmed the transfer. Nathita was with me when I did it, her hand on my shoulder. You're doing the right thing, she said softly. This is our future, Clifford. Ours. We celebrated that night with champagne on the balcony. She was radiant, more affectionate than I'd ever seen her. When she kissed me, light and brief, I felt like I'd finally done something right. Thank you for believing in me, she whispered. I should have asked what she meant by that. But I didn't. I was too busy believing. The first crack appeared 3 weeks later. Small, easy to ignore. Nathita started canceling plans. Work, emergencies, difficult clients, late meetings. I'm so sorry, she'd text. Rain check? I always said yes. What else could I say? She was busy, successful. I couldn't expect her to drop everything for me. But the cancellations became more frequent. Dinners postponed. Weekend trips rescheduled, then canceled altogether. Her texts grew shorter, less personal. When I called, she rarely answered. When she did, she sounded distracted. Is everything okay? I asked one night, trying to keep the worry out of my voice. Everything's fine, she said. Just busy. I'll call you tomorrow. She didn't. I told myself not to panic. People got busy. Life happened. But doubt had started whispering in the back of my mind, quiet but persistent. I went to her office unannounced, something I'd never done before. The receptionist looked confused when I asked for Nathita. She doesn't work here anymore, the woman said in halting English. My heart stopped. What do you mean? Since when? The receptionist checked her computer. 2 weeks ago. She resigned. I called Nathita immediately. She answered on the 5th ring. Why didn't you tell me you quit? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Silence. Then, carefully, I was going to tell you. I've just been dealing with family issues. My mother is sick. I'm sorry, I said, guilt replacing anger. Is she okay? Do you need anything? I'm handling it, she said. I'll explain everything soon, I promise. But she didn't. Days passed with minimal contact. I started calling the condo developer, trying to get information about the property. The woman who answered spoke limited English, but I understood enough. The condo was registered entirely under Nathita's name. No contract, no co-ownership, nothing that tied me to the investment I'd made. I felt my world tilt. When I finally reached Nathita again, I didn't ask gently. I need to see the paperwork for the condo. Our contract. All of it. Her voice changed, defensive and wounded. You think I'm a liar? After everything I've done for you? You think I'd steal from you? I didn't say that, I stammered. I just need to see the documents. You've hurt me, Clifford. Really hurt me. I thought you trusted me. She hung up. I sat in my condo that night, staring at the lights of Bangkok and feeling something inside me break. Not all at once. Slowly, like a structure with a compromised foundation finally giving way, I called her the next morning to apologize. I couldn't lose her. Not over paperwork, not over my own paranoia. She answered, her voice cool. I don't know if I can forgive this, she said, but I'll try. For us. Relief flooded through me, overwhelming and pathetic. Thank you, I said. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She invited me to Khon Kaen the following weekend, to meet her mother, to see her hometown, to prove she was serious about our relationship. I accepted immediately, desperate to repair what I damaged. The bus ride north took 6 hours. Nathita met me at the station, warmer than she'd been in weeks. My mother is excited to meet you, she said. The house was small, simple, surrounded by rice fields that stretched to the horizon. Her mother greeted me with a traditional way, her smile genuine and gap-toothed. She spoke no English, but Nathita translated. We ate som tam and sticky rice on a woven mat on the floor. Her mother kept refilling my plate, laughing when I couldn't finish. After dinner, Nathita walked me around the neighborhood, pointing out where she'd gone to school, where she'd learned to ride a bike. It felt real, grounded. Everything I'd been doubting seemed foolish in the face of this tangible history. Before we left, I gave her mother 50,000 baht, around $1,500. Nathita protested, but her mother accepted with tears in her eyes, pressing my hands between hers. "Kop kun ka," she said over and over. "Thank you." That night, I lay in the guest room listening to the sounds of rural Thailand, crickets, distant dogs, whined through bamboo. I felt at peace, like maybe I'd been wrong about everything. But then I heard voices from the kitchen, Nathita and her brother speaking in low, rapid Thai. I caught fragments, words I'd learned: farang, money, condo. I lay frozen, not wanting to believe what I was hearing. When Nathita came to bed later, she kissed me goodnight like nothing had happened. "Sleep well," she whispered. I didn't. We returned to Bangkok the next day. Nathita was affectionate on the bus, leaning against my shoulder, holding my hand, but I couldn't stop replaying the conversation I'd overheard. When we reached the city, she said she needed to go home, unpack, catch up on work. "I'll call you tomorrow," she promised. She didn't call, not the next day, not the day after. A week passed in agonizing silence. I went to the address she'd given me, the condo she claimed to live in. The security guard looked confused when I asked for her unit number. "No one by that name lives here," he said in broken English. I showed him her picture on my phone. He shook his head. I called the condo developer again, this time with a translator app. The news was worse than I'd imagined. The property had been sold 3 weeks ago, $75,000, transferred to an account under Nathita's name. My $80,000 investment had vanished. I went to the police. 2 officers listened to my story with expressions that told me everything I needed to know. "Do you have contract?" one asked. "No," I admitted, "but I have the bank transfer records." "You gave money willingly?" "Yes, but she said it was an investment. She promised." The officer cut me off gently. "Sir, if you gave money willingly, no crime. This is civil matter. You need lawyer." I left the station feeling smaller than I'd felt in my entire life, not because of the money, though that was devastating, because I'd been a fool, a lonely old man who'd confused kindness with love, attention with affection. I'd given my trust to someone who'd seen me coming from a mile away. That night, I sat in my condo, the one I'd bought with her help, and wondered how much of it had been real. Any of it? The dinners, the trips, the hand-holding and soft words. Had she felt anything? Or had I been a transaction from the start? I didn't hear from Nathita again. Her phone number stopped working. Her email bounced back. She'd vanished as completely as if she'd never existed. The only evidence she'd been real was the hole in my bank account and the hollow ache in my chest. I thought about going home, back to Portland, admitting defeat. But what would I go back to? An empty condo I'd sold? A daughter who'd send a 2-sentence email asking if I was okay? I stayed in Bangkok, but the city looked different now. The temples weren't golden dreams anymore. They were tourist traps. The street food vendors weren't charming. They were overcharging me. The smiles I'd thought were genuine now felt like calculations. Everyone wanted something. I'd just been too naive to see it. Weeks passed in a fog. I stopped going out, ordered food delivery, watched the same shows on repeat, avoided mirrors because I couldn't stand seeing the person staring back. One afternoon, my phone buzzed with an email. From my daughter. The subject line read, "Dad, are you okay?" I opened it with shaking hands. Her message was longer than usual. She'd tried calling, but my number wasn't working. She'd seen my bank transactions, had access to my accounts in case of emergency, and noticed the large withdrawal. Was I in trouble? Did I need help? I wrote back. And for the first time in months, I told someone the truth, not the sanitized version. The real, ugly, humiliating truth. I'd met someone. I'd trusted her. I'd lost almost everything because I wanted to believe I mattered to someone. Sarah called me an hour later. We talked for 2 hours, the longest conversation we'd had since she was a teenager. She didn't say "I told you so." She didn't lecture. She just listened. "Dad," she said finally, "I know we haven't been close. That's on both of us. But you're not alone. You've never been alone. You just stopped letting people in." She was right. I'd come to Bangkok looking for something I thought I'd lost, but maybe what I'd really lost was the ability to see I'd always had it. Connection, family, worth. It wasn't in Bangkok or Portland or any place on a map. It was in the willingness to be vulnerable without keeping score. I didn't move back to Portland. Instead, I found a smaller condo, something I could afford on my remaining savings and pension. I started volunteering at an English learning center near Victory Monument, helping Thai students practice conversation. They were young, earnest, struggling with tenses and pronunciation. Their laughter was real. Their gratitude was real. And slowly, in a way I hadn't expected, I started feeling real again too. One of my students, a 22-year-old woman studying to be a nurse, asked me why I'd come to Thailand. I gave her the honest answer. I was lonely. I thought moving somewhere new would fix that. But loneliness isn't about location. It's about connection. And I'd forgotten how to connect. She nodded thoughtfully. "And now? You still lonely?" I considered the question. "Sometimes, but less than before. I'm learning that being alone and being lonely aren't the same thing." She smiled. "That's very wise, Teacher Clifford." I laughed. "I'm not wise. I'm just expensive to educate." Months passed. The wound Nathita left didn't heal cleanly, but it stopped bleeding. I thought about her less often. When I did, it wasn't with the raw anger I'd felt initially, just a sad understanding. She'd done what she needed to survive in a system that wasn't built for people like her, and I'd been a willing participant in my own exploitation, so desperate for connection that I'd ignored every red flag waving in front of my face. The money was gone. I'd never get it back. But I'd gained something more valuable. Clarity. I knew now what I'd been looking for all along. Not romance, not rescue, just the feeling that my existence mattered to someone, that I wasn't just a ghost moving through spaces without leaving an impact. And the irony was, I'd found that, just not where I'd been looking. It was in the students who thanked me after class, the neighbor who started saying hello in the elevator, the street vendor who remembered I didn't like cilantro. Small moments, real moments, worth more than any property investment. One evening, sitting by the Chao Phraya River, I opened my notebook and started writing. Not for anyone else, just for me. A record of what happened, what I learned, what I'd paid to understand. I wrote about arriving in Bangkok full of hope and leaving that hope in a condo registered under someone else's name. I wrote about the difference between being seen and being used. About how love, or what I'd mistaken for love, had cost me $80,000 but taught me something priceless. That retirement isn't about escaping your life. It's about finally living it honestly. I didn't blame Bangkok. The city hadn't ruined me. It had revealed me, shown me every vulnerability I'd been carrying, every wound I'd left unhealed, every desperate need I'd tried to fill with geography and good intentions. Natsita wasn't a villain. She was a mirror, and I'd spent $80,000 refusing to look at what she was reflecting back. As the sun set over the river, turning the water into liquid gold, I thought about something my daughter had said during one of our recent calls. "Dad, you don't need to prove you deserve happiness. You just need to accept it when it comes, and let go when it doesn't." She was right. I'd spent so much time trying to earn love, to purchase peace, to invest in belonging, that I'd forgotten the most basic truth. You can't buy the things that matter. You can only build them, slowly, with patience and honesty and the courage to be wrong. I closed my notebook and watched the boats drift past, their engines humming in the twilight. Somewhere in this city, Nathita was living a life I'd never be part of. I hoped she was happy. I meant that, because holding on to anger was just another way of staying attached to something that was already gone. I'd come to Bangkok to retire, to find peace, to escape the loneliness that had defined my last decade in Portland. And I'd found all of it, just not in the way I expected. The peace came from accepting I'd been a fool. The retirement came from finally letting go of the person I'd been pretending to be. And the loneliness? It transformed into solitude. The difference being that solitude was a choice, and loneliness was a wound. I chose to sit by this river. I chose to write this story. I chose to stay in this city that had taken so much from me and somehow given me back something more valuable, myself. If I could go back and warn the version of me that stepped off that plane with 2 suitcases and a heart full of hope, I would say this: be careful what you're willing to pay for. Not because the price is always too high, but because sometimes you don't know what you're actually buying until the transaction is complete. I thought I was investing in property, in love, in a future with someone who saw me. But what I was really buying was a lesson, the most expensive lesson of my life. And like all valuable lessons, it hurt like hell to learn. But now, sitting here with the city lights beginning to flicker on across the river, I understand what I paid for. I paid to learn that I don't need rescuing, that loneliness isn't solved by another person, that home isn't a place you find, it's a peace you build inside yourself no matter where you are. I paid $80,000 to learn I'm enough, just as I am, wrinkled and old and sometimes foolish, but enough. Was it worth it? Ask me on my worst days, when the bank balance feels like a physical weight, and I'll say no. Ask me on days like this, when the river is beautiful and my daughter texted me a photo of her morning coffee with the message "thinking of you," and I'll say yes. Not because I'm grateful for the betrayal, but because I'm grateful for surviving it, for learning I could be broken and still wake up the next morning, for discovering that starting over isn't just for the young. It's for anyone brave enough or desperate enough to try. Bangkok didn't give me the retirement dream I imagined. It gave me something harder and more real. It gave me the truth, and the truth, however expensive, however painful, is always worth the cost. Because once you know it, really know it, no one can sell you a lie ever again. I finished writing as the last light faded from the sky. Tomorrow I'd teach another class. I'd drink coffee from the cart where the old woman still overcharged me. I'd walk through Lumpini Park and watch the Tai Chi practitioners move like water. I'd live the life I'd built from the ruins of the life I'd imagined. And that, I was learning, was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The night sounds of Bangkok surrounded me, familiar now in a way they hadn't been when I first arrived. I gathered my notebook, stood up from the bench, and started walking back toward my condo. Not the one I'd bought with Nathita's help, the smaller one, the one that was truly mine. My phone buzzed. A message from one of my students asking about homework. I replied with encouragement and a grammar correction. Small moments, real moments. This was my retirement. Not golden temples and romantic sunsets with a woman who'd seen me as an investment opportunity, but quiet evenings by the river and students who called me teacher and neighbors who nodded hello. This was peace, and it didn't cost $80,000. It didn't cost anything except the willingness to show up honestly, day after day, building a life from whatever pieces remained. I'd learned something they don't put in retirement guides, something no travel blog or expat forum ever mentions. The price of peace isn't measured in dollars or baht. It's measured in how much of yourself you're willing to lose before you remember who you actually are. And that lesson, the most expensive lesson of my life, was finally, completely mine.